Earlier this week, the godfather of Dynasty and our very own Ryan McDowell tweeted out this comment saying that there is a realistic argument that the current Dynasty RB1, wide receiver 1, and tight end 1 are all rookies. Naturally, this garnered a lot of debate and speculation, so I wanted to dive right into this comment and just see how realistic it is for an argument that there is a rookie sitting at the top of the running back, wide receiver, and tight end Dynasty rankings. So let's start with what I believe to be the easiest argument of the three to make, and that is Kyle Pitts as the Dynasty tight end 1. And honestly, this has been an argument since like the day that he was drafted, if not before he was drafted. And he is actually sitting as the tight end 1 in Dynasty in October DLF ADP. So let's take a look at his resume and see if it does stack up against the rest of the competition at tight end and see if he does deserve to be the tight end 1 overall in Dynasty. As of right now, he is 21 years old. He literally just turned 21 like 3 weeks ago. So he's very young, super young, actually 11 years younger than Travis Kelce and 8 years younger than Darren Waller right now. He's the highest drafted tight end of all time, going fourth overall to the Atlanta Falcons, and again to a team that then went on to trade their perennial wide receiver 1, 150 target, 1,300 yard wide receiver 1 in Julio Jones just a couple weeks after drafting Kyle Pitts fourth overall. He has all the physical attributes that you want out of a tight end and is, basically a wide receiver designated as a tight end, and he's been utilized as such by Arthur Smith in this Falcons offense. He's run 31% of his routes outside, which leads all tight ends so far in 2021, and then 50% of his snaps are also coming from the slot, which is third behind only Logan Thomas and Mike Gesicki so far. He's a top 5 tight end currently as well, and has been a top 3 fantasy tight end in each of the past 2 weeks that he has played, with over 7 receptions and 100 receiving yards in both of those games. And he's on a ridiculous 16 game pace of 83 receptions and 1,256 yards as a rookie tight end. And honestly, his only real problem has been touchdowns. He only has 1 touchdown in the 6 games that he has played. But when, not if, when that actually gets figured out by him and Matt Ryan, he is going to be utterly unstoppable in both the NFL and for fantasy. So yeah, I think it's pretty easy to say that Kyle Pitts is the Dynasty tight end 1, and I don't really think there's a strong argument against him for not being the tight end 1. So next we can move on to wide receiver, where I think again it is very realistic to have Ja'Marr Chase as your Dynasty wide receiver 1 right now, given everything that he has been doing over the first 7 games of his career. And it's honestly insane when you look at what he's been doing and the production that he has had, and it's crazy even more to think that we were actually concerned about Ja'Marr Chase just 2 months ago because of a couple drops during the preseason and his comment about not really being able to see the ball because it doesn't have the white stripes on it like it does in college. Like, it's utterly ridiculous how far we've come from just a few drops in the preseason and all that concern at the end of August to now him potentially being the wide receiver 1 overall in Dynasty. And coming into the league, Chase was about as perfect of a wide receiver prospect that you could ever want, that we have ever seen. He had elite college production at a very young age, and again, across from another fantastic elite first round wide receiver in Justin Jefferson. He's got great size at 6'1", 200 pounds, sub 4.4 speed, and got 5th overall draft capital to a team that paired him back with not only one of the best up-and-coming young quarterbacks in the NFL right now, but also his old college quarterbacks to really drive in that narrative of their old chemistry coming back and being really good in the NFL. So I think given all of that, we knew that Ja'Marr Chase was going to be good in the NFL. We knew he'd be good for fantasy, but I don't think we knew that he would be this good. Through 7 games, Ja'Marr Chase has already amassed 754 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns on 35 receptions. For reference, that is way ahead of what Justin Jefferson was doing through 7 games last year, who, need I remind you, went on to have the greatest single rookie wide receiver season of all time. So given Chase's insane production through not even half of the season, he is on a 16 game pace of 80 receptions, 1,700 yards, and 14 touchdowns, which is absolutely insane about what he's been doing through 7 games this year. In October ADP, Chase is already being valued as the wide receiver 5 behind Jefferson, Lamb, Metcalf, and Devontae Adams. So let's run through each of these against Chase and to see if there really is that argument for Ja'Marr Chase as the Dynasty wide receiver 1. First up, we had Davante Adams, and I think the main argument here is just age, since Chase is 7 years younger than Adams. Adams' value at this point in his career can only go down from here, while Chase is only ascending, and also they're producing very similarly anyway. So this isn't just hype versus known production. This is elite production versus elite production. So always, always, always give me the younger guy in that case in Dynasty. Not to mention all the other smaller things with Adams, like being a free agent after this year. So where does he play? Who is his quarterback, since this may or may not be Aaron Rodgers after this year. But the main argument here is age. The next one is DK Metcalf, and I think this is easy for me personally, as I have always thought DK Metcalf was overvalued as a top 5 wide receiver, let alone a potential top 3 dynasty wide receiver. Chase is not only 2 years younger in a better, more pass-happy offense, and his explosive games are on par, if not better, than DK Metcalf because of the opportunity for more targets and receptions per game. So this one is pretty easy for me as well. Give me Jamar Chase over DK Metcalf. Next up is CeeDee Lamb, and this is really where it starts getting difficult because honestly, Lamb's biggest issue is also his biggest strength, which is the Cowboys offense. The Cowboys have so many different ways to beat teams that Lamb could just be scripted out of games because Zeke and Pollard have 250 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns combined. Or maybe Dak found Amari and it was an Amari Cooper week. Maybe Dalton Schultz stole a touchdown from the 15-yard line. And there's just so many different ways that the Dallas Cowboys can beat teams that it might not always be a CeeDee Lamb week. And as sad as it is to say, Lamb is not the alpha on this team, at least hopefully not yet. And we have seen that in his fantasy game log so far this year with 2 games already under 10 PPR points. Chase, however, is the alpha and Burrow's go-to target every single week. So the argument is there for Chase over CeeDee Lamb in Dynasty. And then finally, we get to Justin Jefferson, the battle of the old teammates, and most likely the 2 best rookie wide receivers of all time. But I still think there is somewhat of an argument for Chase over Jefferson. It might not be super strong to you, but I think it's still there. First of all, the Vikings, like the Seahawks and to an extent the Dallas Cowboys, want to be run first with Dalvin Cook, and they have been very successful in doing that. Kirk Cousins is also a very good quarterback, though, and Jefferson is still his go-to target most of the time. Otherwise, it is Adam Thielen, but that's really the only other competition for Justin Jefferson, unlike CeeDee Lamb, with a multitude of other talented wide receivers and or running backs that can take targets away from CeeDee Lamb. That's not really happening with Justin Jefferson. Cousins is also a free agent at the end of 2022, so there is that possibility that Justin Jefferson gets a new quarterback in 2 years. But again, that's in 2 years, and you have a year and a half basically now to still get all of the elite production that Justin Jefferson is giving you right now. And then he's still only going to be 23 years old. And because Jefferson is a year older, that doesn't really matter though, because like I said, it is 21 years old versus Jefferson being 22 years old right now. So honestly, I think the argument here comes down to preference between Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. I think these two are clearly the top 2 wide receivers in Dynasty, and they probably will be for a very long time. So if you're ever given the question of who do you prefer in Dynasty between Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, the answer is just quite simply yes. So now we come to what I believe to be the biggest stretch of an argument in arguing for a rookie running back to be the Dynasty RB1 right now. And I have to admit, I think it is pretty bold of Ryan to suggest that Elijah Mitchell is the Dynasty RB1 right now. But I do think there is somewhat of an argument for Najee Harris as the Dynasty RB1, but it's just not super strong right now. Similar to Jamar Chase, Najee Harris came in as the RB6 overall in October DLF ADP, behind Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Dalvin Cook, Saquon Barkley, and Alvin Kamara. I'm not going to do the same 1v1 comparison that I just did with Jamar Chase, because I think right away a lot of people, myself included, would have Najee over Kamara, Saquon, and Dalvin Cook as well, based on age and potential injury concerns mixed in between the 3 of them. So I think right away, and again, myself included, most people would have Najee Harris as a top 3 Dynasty running back right now, or at least RB4, with some other running back up there that we'll get to in a second. So to me, the next debate is between Najee and Christian McCaffrey, and this is just really sad to me because it's Christian McCaffrey, right? This dude literally broke fantasy 2 years ago and is still an elite player when he's on the field in both the NFL and for fantasy. Just his only problem has been he has not been on the field a lot in the last 2 years, and I think people are starting to get tired of it, especially with this last injury that put him on the injured reserve this year. Pair that with the fact that Najee Harris is 2 years younger than Christian McCaffrey, and you have yourself a pretty good argument for Najee Harris over Christian McCaffrey in Dynasty right now, as sad as that is to say, but that's at least where we're at with Christian McCaffrey. The really hard part though is having Najee Harris over Jonathan Taylor, and this is really where I struggle to find a good argument for Najee, because not only have they been scoring pretty similarly this year through 7 weeks as top 5 running backs, but Taylor is still 1 year younger than Najee Harris, despite being in last year's draft class. Just how old Najee was when he came out, because he stayed for his 4th year at Alabama. That Jonathan Taylor is still a year younger than Najee right now. And sure, Najee has doubled Jonathan Taylor's volume in the receiving game with 46 targets compared to 23 for Jonathan Taylor. But Taylor is in a much better offense with a much better offensive line. And while there still might be questions about the Colts' long-term starter at quarterback, whether you may or may not believe in Carson Wentz, there are many, many more questions about who the long-term starter is for Pittsburgh at the quarterback position. Honestly, right now with Ben Roethlisberger, but then also what happens after Ben Roethlisberger with Mason Rudolph, Dwayne Haskins, or insert 2022 or 2023 rookie here. Like, that's just a whole different conversation for Najee Harris. And I think a lot of other people would have DeAndre Swift up here in this conversation as well, if not ahead of Najee Harris in Dynasty running back rankings. But I think really this is where the buck stops for Najee, at least for the terms of this video, because to me, Jonathan Taylor is the clear-cut Dynasty RB1, and I don't even think it's really all that close. So that wraps up the arguments for rookies being the current Dynasty RB1, wide receiver 1, and tight end 1. Let me know down in the comments if you agree or disagree with anything that I've said, and let me know if you have these guys as your Dynasty RB1, wide receiver 1, and tight end 1. If this is how high that you are valuing Najee Harris, Jamar Chase, and Kyle Pitts, let me know all that stuff down in the comments so we can get some really good debates going on down in there. And if you would like to watch a video recapping all of week 7 from a Dynasty standpoint, you can watch this video and click right up there. And with that all being said, guys, thank you all so much for watching. We'll catch y'all later.